what about a maybe more seasoned, a veteran CSP who feels like they've given it a shot in the past? They feel like they've done sales promos, done campaigns, and they just haven't experienced that success at a high level. So they're questioning if they should ever do it again. What would your advice be, and what mistakes do you find people make that cause that lack of success?
I've totally been there, by the way. And I've had sales promos where I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like what happened? And usually when that happens, it's because I'm not sticking to the things that I know that work, and I'm trying to skate by on doing the bare minimum. If you want a sale promotion to be successful, it's not all just going to come to you. And I think that's what a lot of us get accustomed to, or have this misconception that, my customers are just going to come to me and they're just going to tell me what they want, and I'm pretty much just here to take the orders. We all have those issues, like that all comes up, right? But so I think the biggest things are, we all know fortune is in the follow-up. And if you just have the outgoing marketing going out, but you also have shows that you're going to, or service calls, or this or that thing that don't allow you to create that phone time that you need to follow up with people, then of course it's not going to work.
Thanks for joining us on the CSP Hot Hands 60 Minutes of Fire podcast. My name's Brett Wiggins, and I get to serve as your host. So what is a CSP? CSP is a Cutco sales professional. There are a lot of them out there, and they've all got a different answer to the question, why do you sell so much? Our mission is to find out the answer to that question from as many of them as possible. These next 60 minutes are designed for Cutco sales reps who desire to learn from our best in the field. So we interview top sales professionals from around the country with questions provided by their peers to make all that happen. 60 minutes of fire means we get straight to the point. Let's do it. Welcome to CSP High and 60 Minutes of Fire. We're at episode 13, and I am so excited for our guest today because she is the girl from the phoning video herself, Stacie Barton from our Montgomery County office and Pennsylvania division. Anytime Stacie references a resource that's available to use, she's going to share it with me after our time together. We'll make it available to you guys in our resource folder. So Stacie, if you do end up having any like a script you reference or a template, don't feel the need to cover in detail right now, so we can spend the bulk of our time on these questions from the CSP community that they put together for you. I want to directly thank those of you who submitted questions for this episode. It would not be very fire without your help. It would be more like the first half of the Super Bowl we all watched. Like, we watched it, but we didn't like it. And the second half, fire. First half, lukewarm at best. So thank you to Jordan Thomas, John Wasserman, Rob Steiner, Benji Lehman, all having questions selected for this episode. Stacie, are you ready to jam?
I'm so ready.
Oh, she's so ready. Let's do it. And I want to thank her too. Like, Stacie, this is after some service appointments. You've been in the car, just got home. Like, thank you for making time for us. First of all. Second of all, how long have you been selling Cutco?
12 and a half years.
12 and a half years. Your Cutco career is almost a teenager. That's crazy. You're like, yeah, dang it. What does your yearly sales breakdown for the year typically look like, Stacie? Like, what % at the booth? Is there any Cutco gifting, service, past customer marketing? What do we got?
Great question. I would say about a little more than a third is traditional events. Mm-hmm. Around a third or a little less is federal. So nice. I'm in our Armed Forces division, and then the rest would be sale promotions and past customer business, service calls. So service itself has been a smaller role, trying to make it a much larger one this year.
Cool.
And same thing with business gifts, something that I've barely dabbled in. And then I'm actually in Rob Robinchek's coaching group. So
Rob,
I'm
a
working on that.
friend of the show. He was our first episode. And
First
then
episode.
we just had Chelsea Rodriguez on earlier this week, and I know she's heavy in federal. And I didn't realize she was part of the beginning of federal, and what she was saying was, yeah, when we started it, we didn't think it was going to be this big thing, and oh my goodness, it's a pretty big thing. Pretty awesome. What other titles do you have in life outside of Cutco, Stacie? Are you a sister, girlfriend, dog mom, anything else besides Cutco sales professional?
Sister, girlfriend, daughter. Uh, most of. Oh, I'm a coach at my gym. I
Oh,
don't know if
nice.
yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Last fun thing you did besides slinging blades or lifting heavy things?
I do both of those very frequently. But last fun thing that I did just go on a cruise 2 weeks ago for
Yeah.
Alicia Anderer's birthday. That was really fun.
Birthday parties on cruise ships. That's pretty epic. That's pretty
Right.
like we have ours at the local bowling alley. Cruise ship, much bigger deal. Yeah. That's awesome. What's your best year ever for CPO up to this point?
It was around 339.
Nice. Okay. And then I love that you're on our episode then, because we have a if I feel like as a division, at least for us, wherever the top rep is, there's like a group of 4 of them that are right there together. So like as soon as one person pops, somebody, they're all kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but they're all right around that 250 to 300 range. So yeah, I would love to see them pop over 300. That'd be great. Something in the works. Maybe it's an order. Maybe it's a secret program, a business relationship, something that you're working on that you're excited about.
That's a really great question. Something that I'm working on that I'm excited about. Well, I help facilitate the Sale Promo Max coaching program with Josh Muller and Luke Mills. And so I was the head of that program last year, and then I was juggling a few too many things, so I put it slightly on the back burner, but now I'm building it back up again this year. So
Sweet. That's awesome.
yeah.
Love their program and their coaching that they do. We've got a couple reps on it. And then we had Josh on last season. Luke's coming up next week. He's our very next episode. So love both those guys. There's a lot of people that get and create a lot of CPO. And then there's people that I just feel like the way they present things, they just do it the right way. And I would definitely put both of those guys in that category.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's amazing. But everything that comes out of their mouth is gold. So
yeah, it's just gonna just make sense. They say it and you're like, okay, that's all, and I can feel good about it, Okay, so you're kind of known in the CSP community, Stacie, as one of our you mentioned, our sales promo experts. Okay. And why do you think you get that reputation? Why do you think you elevated yourself to being a part of Josh and Luke's program as a leader? What got you there?
I would say I took what I took what I was taught and just put it into work. Basically, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I was super diligent about really learning the sale promo program. So when I first did it, it was like a group coaching, and that was how I originally participated in it. And I ended up just getting really great results from it right off the bat. And that was something that I think stuck out to Josh and Luke, especially. I was one of the only ones who had started to develop a like almost 6-figure sale promo program in their business. And then I've just continued to grow and nurture that.
Wow. So what year did it hit $100,000 in sales from your sales promos?
Not yet.
Oh,
Almost.
God. Okay.
Almost 6 figures. So I've
Yeah.
gotten to 93 is the highest I've gotten.
At
It's
least it was like
this
99.9,
close.
that
I
I would be
know.
calling I'm not below calling, mom for a cheese knife when needed, but yeah. Okay. So 93, that's pretty
It's
remarkable
gonna
though.
get there
So,
this year. This is gonna be the
okay.
year.
So this is the year. So what are the, if I'm sitting here as a newer CSP,
Mhm.
I've never ran a sale before. I've never done anything with it. I've just always said, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. And then, business happens and I never do. What's the keys to a successful sale? Like, what's the outline? Is there a secret sauce to it? Are there any big rocks that you think really like you got to have blank to have a shot?
Number one is the value that you add to your customers year round. So that's the first step. I don't normally recommend to people to just jump right into a sale
Hmm.
if they don't have some type of value added content that they're already giving to their clients. The reason why is because you don't want your customers to think that the only times you reach out to them are for sales purposes.
Yeah.
So you want them to be loyal to you, to see the value that you continue to add to them so that they want to continue to work with you. So that's my biggest thing right off the bat. From there, it's, I think people overcomplicate it. But it's also, there are certain things that you really need to pay attention to. You can't just send out one email and then be like, all right, I ran my sale, got a few responses to that email. Like that was how I started. And I would have like a $3,000 sale promotion campaign and be like, well, that didn't do anything. I worked so hard. And it's like, no, you didn't. So pairing your there's several different types of mediums that you can
Mm-hmm.
do to reach out to clients, like outgoing marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you can pull in from those, that's it's the layering technique. So you send out an email, but then you also have a text message that goes with it, or you also have social media or some type of check-in call, phone call, um, the voice drops, and like those types of different mediums are what we're looking
Yeah.
for here.
So, and it's
Postcard
something I hear from reps a lot
catalog.
is like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm bugging or annoying or stepping on their whatever. Like they would have replied if whatever. What got you, if you ever had that mindset, like what caused you to shift out of that and stop thinking about it that way? And do you do things in a way to where you're like, no, like I am adding value, whether they end up buying anything or not? Was there an example in the past or a time where it was like, wow, like it really did take me 5 different layers of communication or marketing and uh, a customer reference them or anything like that? When was the aha moment for you where it was like, okay, I need to add on more than just an email?
That's a really great question. I would say one of the biggest game changers for me was incorporating text messages. I also, when I love the way that you phrase that, because that is one of the most common things that I hear in the coaching that I do is, oh, but I don't want to overload them. And immediately my response is, well, think of your favorite clothing brand or a brand that you are loyal to for whatever reason. How much do they reach out to you? And a lot of times those companies are reaching out to you in some type of form daily, if not every other day or at least weekly. So when I hear of reps being like, oh, like, I don't want to, like, this customer said, like, please unsubscribe me. Just because one customer said that doesn't mean that the other 500, 1,000, 2,000, however many clients you have feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's just not how they prefer to be communicated with. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is not getting like hurt over how someone tells you they don't want to be communicated with. That's their decision. That's something that they want, and that's okay. So I think what I've learned is that not everyone checks their email. Not everyone is really good with text message. But then there are people who I would have never been able to get a hold of them via email. And so I was able to get a hold of them because I sent them a text, and vice versa. There's people who have no idea how to work their phone and are like, I don't, what's a text message, right? And then, but they get an email from me or they get a postcard from me or they get a phone call from me, and those are the ways that they will then respond.
Mm,
So there's different levels there of all the different options we have. And I think that's what's more important is figuring out how the client likes to be worked with and making that something that can be long-standing and continue to build that.
for sure. And what goes into that? Like, is it, hey, I'm gonna use everything to start and then let them kind of self-select them what they're themselves out, or is there some marketing that you reserve for, whatever your top 10% of clients, and everybody gets this but only a couple people get that? Or do you kind of start with like, everybody's going to get a postcard, everybody's going to get a catalog, everybody's going to get a text, everybody's going to email, and then it's like, hey, if they choose not to use one of those, I'll do that on the back end?
So for me, everyone gets an email,
Yep.
everyone gets a text message. If I'm running a sale promotion, I do exclude, for example, let's say I just saw someone last week at an event and they purchased from me there. I don't want them to then get an email this coming week that I'm now running a sale promotion. So I will exclude anyone who's purchased within the last 30 days, for
Oh,
example.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Gotta do that.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't think that's something, I mean, we've had a lot of people on the podcast. I don't think that's something that we've had brought up before, but it just makes sense that you just saw them, they just purchased. You don't want somebody to necessarily see a lower price 5 days after they just bought from you, but also like you just had contact with them.
I do always send an email and a text. What I do recommend for newer reps or someone who is not as, maybe they're not spending as much on their marketing yet, or they are really trying to build that layer up, you don't have to do the expensive things right away. And that's
Mm,
something that I also see people do is they just throw money at the problem and then they don't have the follow up in place, or they're like, wow, that was so much money and I didn't get the response from it that I wanted because they had different expectations. So that's something that I want to mention right off the bat. If you're newer, utilize having your rep portal and being able to send emails through a rep portal. If you're not ready for text messages yet, that's okay. Depending on like how many customers you have, you can send them on your own phone without having to do, pay for a mass thing. Although I do find it really helpful no matter what.
yeah.
But as far as everything else goes, direct mail, the most expensive thing that you can put out that also can have a varying level of response back. And that's something that you normally need to make sure that you're pairing it with some other type of marketing. I would never just send out a catalog and not have anything else to go with it. Like, I want them to get an email knowing that the catalog's coming, a text message of, hey, your catalog should be dropping blank, or you should have already gotten your catalog by now. A phone call for me, hey, just checking in, how's it going? Did you happen to get the catalog I sent you in the mail? So that's something where I'm going to be pairing it with all these other things to make sure that it facilitates the response that I want. I have a big event coming up next weekend, and a postcard dropped for that. It should be going out, or they should be getting it either sometime this week or beginning of next. And they're also going to be getting an email from me and a text message from me. So those are things that I put it all together so that it creates more of a response that I want. If I don't, does that make sense so far?
Yeah, completely. I'm glad that you brought up the direct mail is going to be the most expensive part of it. What do you think that adds to the, like, what does that do? Is it reaching a certain audience that they would never download a PDF, or they're not going to, or is it actually, it's not just those people, it's enhancing people that are answering the text message and whatnot. They like having the physical thing in hand. Like, what does that add to the whole process? If you're still tracking and categorizing all your own expenses, I have a message from your CPA. Stop. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are your goals include growing your sales. And one way to do that is delegating admin responsibilities by trading time for money. Rising Stock and MyBooks.pro is exactly what you need. Rising Stock is an all-encompassing financial tracking and coaching program, where MyBooks.pro is exactly what it sounds like. They just do your books. You can choose to just have them track your expenses or take advantage of everything they have to offer. Do your business and your CPA a favor by scheduling a free intro call today at linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the two E's. Process.
A lot of customers love to have like a tactical, something that they can feel. Sometimes the online catalog just isn't enough. And a lot of that is with some of our older clients who are just more used to that type of vibe. And that's completely okay. Same thing with, let's say, like, so for example, these service calls that I did today, neither of them had seen me in 10 years. I had a home phone number and no email for one of them. If they didn't happen to check the voicemail that I left on their home phone, then really the only way that I have to get a hold of them is via mail, like physical mail. So the only way they're going to keep in touch and know, hey, this is my Cutco gal, is if I send them a postcard or I send them a catalog. And that's just one more way to stay top of mind and be able to create more of that awareness.
Love it.
So it sometimes does reach a different community. It also can help if you don't have active information for someone. So I'm finding a lot of my older clients, like clients I've had for a long time, I either don't have an active email for them or I don't have a working phone number or definitely not a cell phone. So that's a lot of what I'm experiencing is, okay, how do I then reach those people? And the only thing I have is a physical address.
Got it. Awesome. And then, what about a maybe more seasoned, a veteran CSP who feels like they've given it a shot in the past? They feel like they've done sales promos, done campaigns, and they just haven't experienced that success at a high level. So they're questioning if they should ever do it again. What would your advice be? And what mistakes do you find people make that cause that lack of success?
I've totally been there, by the way. And I've had sales promos where I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like what happened? And usually when that happens, it's because I'm not sticking to the things that I know that work and I'm trying to skate by on doing the bare minimum. If you want a sale promotion to be successful, it's not all just going to come to you. And I think that's what a lot of us get accustomed to or have this misconception that, you know, my customers are just going to come to me and they're just going to tell me what they want. And I'm pretty much just here to take the orders. And I think someone like Josh Mueller, for example, is a really fantastic example as someone who he sold $1 million last year. And I think 750 of it was all to his past customers.
Nuts.
And I think it was over, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was over 400,000 was just from his sale promotions alone. And I know it was over 3. So I know he sold more on his sale promotions than I did my whole year. So I was like, cool. But that's the power of marketing and gaining those customers and having those relationships. And I forget why I was bringing that up. There was something that led me to that.
Something people, if they're not seeing results, they've tried it. What's your advice?
Right. So I guess my point was like, we all have those issues, like that all comes up, right? But so I think the biggest things are, we all know fortune is in the follow-up. And if you just have the outgoing marketing going out, but you also have shows that you're going to, or service calls, or this or that thing that don't allow you to create that phone time that you need to follow up with people, then of course it's not going to work. I also find that a lot of times people will try and run a sale during, let's say, and not that this, I'm not discouraging this, by the way, but it is something that I see that's common is SC2, for example, is when a lot of people love to run a sale. But what are you also doing during SC2? You're doing every event on the weekend. You're doing a bunch of service calls or demos, and you have
all setting yourself up for failure, right?
Yes. People don't, I'm like, okay, you can run it during SC2 if you want, but do you have the time for follow-up?
Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, Stacie, because I think the SC2 results mask the sale, right? Yeah. It's like they don't even realize their sale totally bombed because they were selling so much more elsewhere. Yeah. But then they might review at the end of the year their P&L and go, oh, freaking sale didn't work. Not doing that again. But you're saying, hey, like, it's not just about time of the year for them, or when you need to sell out, it's actually when you have the built-in time to go follow up.
Well, and also they'll do it as an add-in. So they just see it, they don't see it as a whole layer. For me, like my sale promotions are an entire layer of my business. And that's something that I focus on every single year. Whereas certain people will just throw it in there, be like, okay, well, during SC2, I'll do all these things and I'll run a sale. That'll get me extra CPO. But they don't realize that they're sitting on a gold mine where instead of selling 5 to 10K in a sale promotion, if they really dug deep, they could be selling 20 to 30K in a sale promotion and then really feel the difference in those results rather than just doing it to do something.
So I don't know the magic number. I don't know like if it's 3, 10, 50 sales per year, whatever, but whatever that number is, if you run one and you promote it during a time you can't follow up properly, you're kind of wasting your customers' attention like that. You could be wasting the time that they do like, oh my gosh, if I get followed up with, because I'm consciously, no, I'm going to do something about this. You really want to save those shots for when you can be completely all in. Anything else advice wise for somebody that's like, they're like, I've done it, I've tried it, but I didn't see the results.
Again, I mean, a lot of people think that they can just accept the orders and they'll just come. But I think, what I was gonna mention is when I talk about follow-up time, some people might be like, well, how much time do I need? So for example, we usually recommend if you have 1,000 customers, then you should account for at least 30 hours of follow-up time. So for every 1,000 customers, you want 30 hours of follow-up time. Now that, not to say that, like, let's say you have 1,000 customers, but only 600 active emails that you're going to be reaching out to. That's a little different. But it's more so like the amount of people that you're actually able to reach. So I also say for text messages, for every 500 text messages you're sending out, you want to have scheduled 2 hours of follow-up time immediately after.
And none of those numbers are going to be perfect, but man, to have some sort of guideline to at least plan off of is huge. I think that's super valuable for our team. You mentioned you don't recommend anyone running a sale if they aren't providing value first.
Mm-hmm.
So like when do you recommend a rep like starts doing that? Like when should someone run their first sale or start actively providing value before they run a first sale? Like, is it a career sales number? Is it a number on ROR? Is it a length of time that they've been selling? What do you think is, and there might not be a perfect answer, but what's your gut say?
Truthfully, I think that's my biggest regret is that I didn't start doing that sooner. I waited way too long to like today. I just got a card in the mail from Vast Action that it was my 8-year anniversary with them. And so that means I waited almost 5 years to actually start. Like, yes, I sent some stuff through my rep portal, but it was mostly just me being like, hey, here's a sale. Like, it was not actually adding value to my clients. And I just didn't really know how to do that then. And that's the biggest thing that I wish that I would have done sooner. I think anyone can do it at any point in their career. Doesn't matter if you've been doing it for a summer, if you've been doing it for a year, 2 years, if you have 100 clients or 500 clients or 5,000 clients. I think anybody should be able to do some type of value adding to their clients.
Love it.
By the way, value adding can also be service.
Yeah.
So if you're at that like 2 to 3 year mark, you're in that sweet spot of being able to call your first initial people who are still loving their Cutco because they're still in really great shape, but also still in that fresher spot of like remembering how much they paid for it. So they kind of have an idea of prices and it's a little bit more recent that they've seen it. So like offering service is a really great way to add value to people if that's something that you haven't been able to do yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking I always try to use manager brain and then try my best. It's not my best side, but my salespeople brain. And it's like, okay, cool. Like as a manager, like when's too early? When is it a waste of time to teach them? But then when is it like sweet spot? And I think the answer is definitely before that 2-year mark. Like that's, I don't know when, but it's definitely before that. Um, one more question that is born off another answer you gave, which was summer sales, SE2 pushes. Like, talked about that. You talked about make sure you're doing a sale when you have the follow-up time available. One question, this was from Benji Lehman. Do you find that like when a rep does a summer sale for like their SE2 push, does that have any sort of negative effect on catalog season? Like, does it have any like further ramifications that they're not thinking of, or?
Absolutely not. I
Okay,
mean, one of the things you mentioned earlier, like what's the sweet spot? Personally, I run 3 sales a year.
got it.
And so that's my general. I run a spring, a summer, and a fall. I find a lot of reps are scared to run 3. They think that it's too much. And then that's the same thing when I point at like one of your favorite clothing brands. How often do
Dude,
they run a sale?
anything I've ever bought off of Instagram, I have 3 sales within a week. So, yeah, it's 3 a year is not overwhelming. I can tell you that much for sure.
Right. 3 years not overwhelming. And this is a luxury product that, and the thing that I also tell people is customers are going to buy from you no matter what. Like I have customers who do buy every single sale and they're committed, but I also have customers who are going to buy throughout the year no matter what time it is, regardless of whether a sale is happening or not. I actually, up until the last couple of years, my summer sale would be like my biggest sale. And I think it was 2020, 2020 was when that really got big. And then 2021 was my biggest summer sale, I think. Yes. I did like, or wait, was it 2020? One of them I did like 34, or no, one I did like 38, and the other one I did like 34. Um,
I promise you're not the only one that 2020 through 2022 is all kind of like just one year.
yeah, right.
uh,
I'm like, something like that. Yes.
so 3 a year is your personally what you believe like that's based on, not too much, but definitely enough. But also based on you're willing and able to create space as that sale runs to max it out.
Yes. So I will add one more thing.
Yeah.
A good philosophy to follow, I learned this from Amy Muller a long time ago, is the 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 3 value added content or whatever it is, you do 1 sale.
Hmm.
So every 3 value adds, 1 sale. Meaning, let's say, so here's an example. January, you send out a content email. February, you send out a content email. March, you send out a content email. April, you send out a sale.
Got
It
it.
doesn't have to be that exact structure, but you want at least that buffer time in between.
Yeah.
So that's usually how I structure it.
Yeah, giving me Gary V jab 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 right hook vibes. I think that is and I think that when we truly like are trying to provide a service and add value to customers' lives, like that's the fun part. When it's just to be able to throw a sale at them, yeah, that sounds and feels annoying, and it probably is. How do you provide that value and that service and feel authentic and great about it? What are the types of things that you're sending to your customers? What are the types of things that you spend time on that like when you hit that schedule with vast action, it's like, all right, I'm fired up for them to get this email and it's not a sale email. What are some examples, or how do you get yourself to like be like, man, I really do believe in what I'm sending them even when it's not a sale?
So I'm going to give a lot of credit to Vast Action real quick, just because
Fair,
they've
allowed.
done everything for me. They are a dream. And not that anybody has to use them. I love how easy they make the process and how much I know that my clients get out of it.
Hmm.
So, like for example, they'll do like a theme for the month. Like it could be like an email is all themed about garlic, or it could be all themed about like carving a turkey for Thanksgiving. Like there's a bunch of different ways that it can attack pizza, like all sorts of options of how to give them recipes, fun tips, knife of the month or product of the month, and really tie them into what they own, what they could potentially own. And even outside of that, just all the other little fun add ins. And we also do things like drawings. Customers love stuff like that. And then I also will filter in like things that I'm doing. Like when I bought my house, that was a big thing that I shared with my customers who were really excited. And they loved hearing about that. And I still get customers who are like, how's your house? How's this? And I just having that extra personal factor on the service, one of the service calls I was on this morning, I was telling her about how I'm going to Europe in a few weeks, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like, can you at least like, I don't know, send pictures or show pictures somewhere?" I was like, "Yeah, they'll probably be in my next email," and she was like, "Okay, perfect."
Yeah, man,
So
people care. People care, you know? They like
great.
what yeah. Um, I love your answer because I think what my philosophy a lot of times is if I'm not willing to put in the time to be an expert at something, I'm gonna find somebody I trust and somebody who is great at it. And I am
Yeah.
totally fine throwing money at that situation. Especially when it's somebody as great and has such a track record like Vast Action. I think some people uh based on the questions that I got, they might fall into the trap of believing that like, a sales promo might take away from my boost sales or my boost sales might take away from like or vice versa. Um, do you feel like you've found a way to make like your booth and sales discounts or promos like work together versus customers or one or the other?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have people who are always going to go to a show and they're always going to find me there and get the show deal. And then I have other people who are always going to buy during a sale and they're always going to get the sale deal and that's what they want. And then I have some people who are going to fall in the middle and who, might go one way or another, or who might not even buy during either of those. And that's going to happen too. And I feel like they actually end up helping each other because again, it's all about how do I stay top of mind and continue to be marketed as their Cutco person, their Cutco contact. And that's my main goal. So if someone sees that I'm going to be at the flower show next weekend, but they're not able to make it, but they have stuff on their wish list, it's like, okay, well, can we take care of that now? Can I get you the show specials over the phone? Or would it be better for me to follow up with you during my sale in the spring? Or, anything like that. So I feel like they can really help each other out. And rather than it be like oh, I'm oversaturating on this or I'm doing too much. Um, I, a lot of times I'll use my sale to my advantage on service calls, for example. So like, oh, by the way, just so you know, when I come over, my spring sale is gonna be running at the same time.
Mhm.
So in case you want to take advantage of that while we're on the appointment, like that's a big thing too. Um, so I feel like that they can just work together rather than work against each other.
For sure. I mean, I could even see something going out about an event you're running, and because somebody can't make it to that event, but they want to take advantage of the sale, that creates something right there for somebody that's not even going to be at the event. Do you do any difference in discounts? Like, or is it the same sale regardless of how they're buying?
That's a really great question. I used to do the same sale no matter what, which you can do, and customers don't care. They just want a deal, and that's fine. Like that's another thing is everyone gets so tripped up on like when the email's going out or what it is that's on sale and all. And I'm like,
We love majoring in the minors, Stacie.
yeah,
Dude,
customers don't care. Like they just want to get the deal. They just want to buy the stuff. That's all they need. Like they don't care that your email went out on Monday last week, but on Tuesday this week. Like, and anyway, so I'm sorry, my ADD brain
you're
just
good. You're good. But you got passionate for a second.
yeah,
Differing sales, do they have to be the same
right.
discount?
Okay.
Working with Trent Booth and the Veritas Leadership Group over the last decade has unlocked things within me that I never knew existed until they were coached out of me. If you're listening and you feel stuck or like you have another gear that you're having a hard time getting to, Trent's offering a free intro call to any of our listeners. I love Veritas because it's an amazing combo of mentoring and coaching. I get what I need when I need it most. It's also a flat monthly rate, which is awesome for anyone looking to give it a shot with no contract and no long-term commitment. Schedule a call with Trent today by going to linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the two
Okay,
E's.
thank you. I now have been in the process of switching it up, and I've really liked that.
Okay.
So, if you're running a sale for the first time, I would say one of the easiest ones to do, if you're comfortable if you're in a space of like you're able to charge your account a little bit, that's great. I'm not going to encourage anyone to do that. That's not like what I'm telling you to do. But for example, I could easily give 10% off of 2 pieces, charge my account the $20 or whatever it is,
Yep.
if that's going to help close the order. So a lot of times what I do is, like, my initial sale was 5% off 1 to 2 items, 10% off 3 to 4, 15% off 5 plus, and then, or 5 to 7, and then 20% off of like block sets, upgrades, like all the things. And then I've also filtered in there, like when Cutco has like a cookware special going on, or there was one time where I had all those other specials, and I also had, if you buy a dedicated chef set or an accomplished chef set, you get X amount in free Cutco with it. So those are also good things to add in, but I feel like the percentages off are really simple. It's an easy way for customers to understand. And then it's also easy for you to then upsell them to the next level. Like, hey, you're at 4 pieces. If you get one more, that bumps you up to the 15% off. And now you could also do it where you can offer them an option of, I can either do 10% off, or I can get you a free cutting board, and that's actually worth more. And that was something that I did a little bit this last, like the winter sale. I did levels of spend X amount and you get X amount for free. And I really liked that, because that was very clear of like, hey, you're spending this, you get this amount for free. But if you spend this much, then you get this much for free. And that was really nice too.
I feel like I fall into your side of, I just like to keep things simple, even if it's going to lose me a little bit of CPO in that one minor transaction, because over the course of a year, the less amount of energy I have to spend on it, I feel like is a net positive. Where I definitely, and you know who I'm talking to, CSPs out there. I've had some CSPs that will spend an extra hour on an order to save 25 to like to find the best. And it, right, your facial expression is mine. I'm like, dude, why? Like, why? No, just keep it. So I love the idea of just keeping it simple, because I think anytime we try to make it perfect, well, that's just causing us to delay, and then we overthink it, and then whatever. Love the idea of just keeping it simple. I wanted to switch gears for a second, because I at the beginning of the episode I mentioned who submitted questions. One of them, your DVM and all timer when it comes to Cutco leaders, John Wasserman. And I said, hey, what's a question that I could ask Stacie? And he said, oh, I have one that would be monumental for the CSP community to hear. So brace yourself.
Okay, I'm ready.
He said to ask you, if you had 5 demos in a day, how much you expect to sell?
He did not say that.
He did. So if I understand correctly, this is an inside joke with you guys, because every time you come to the office.
Yeah.
So
did he also tell you to ask me if I had 6 demos in a day, how many I'd sell?
No, but I love it.
Okay.
We're getting an insight into your guys' relationship. The serious question asked though was he said to ask, what experience have you had outside of being a CSP that you feel like have really helped you not just sell more, but be a better business person?
I mean, as far as like when I think about myself as a business person, I'm not a numbers gal. I I'm very much like a planner, an organizer, and a people person. So when I think about what has contributed to those things, um, a lot of it is like how I grew up.
Mm,
And I think that's had the biggest impact on just how I operate as an individual in terms of why I place so much value on relationships and making people feel good, wanting to foster those like great relationships and continue to build that. And I would say, as far as, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of something specific. I can't
yeah,
name like a pinpoint of like, this was a time where I was like, yeah, that's going to improve my business.
sure.
But I think I put myself into a lot of different situations where my grit was tested, where like I've just had to like dig deep and like put my head down and keep moving forward. And
Mhm.
I think that's something that has continually showed up. I have had to always learn like how to properly manage my emotions, especially behind the booth. I get very emotional. I've cried countless times behind the booth, and um, that's not something that I find in most of my other coworkers who are like all guys. They're like, "Ah, why is Stacie crying?" And I get very tied into like my conversations and the people, and I think it's a good thing and a bad thing in that respect. But I think that's a lot of why like my customers love me. And I'm not just saying that I'm not on this pedestal, but that's just the general feedback that I get. I had a customer who went to a show down in Florida a couple weekends ago, and I know the CSP that was working it, great guy, T Max. And he texted me and was like, "Hey, Stephanie came to the booth and she really wanted you to get credit for this order." And he sent me a 15% kickback on it. And I was like, "You so didn't have to do that." Like, that was just really, really nice. But it's also cool that like my customer happened to be there and was like, "Hey, this girl Stacie, I want her to get the credit, you know?" Um,
Probably a good sign that you're doing more than sending sale emails. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but I don't know.
Dude, the answer that you give is the answer we were meant to have. I do want to follow up and say you mentioned how you grew up. You said fostering relationships. Anything deeper there? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people learn once they get in the business. Like, oh wow, like I need to value each relationship. I need to network. I need to I can learn something from everyone. Putting people first, things like that. It sounds like you came into the business with that mindset. Where'd that come from? Is that from
Yeah.
parents, from a teacher, a coach?
I had to rely on friends a lot growing
Mm,
up, and my friends were my strongest confidants, relationships, everything. Like, they meant the most to me. And a lot of it was just, I mean, it's no one's fault, just people not being around and a lot of responsibility falling onto me as a young child. And so I think that's something that has just carried with me. And I think that would be the biggest thing,
yeah.
really.
You
Um,
mentioned grit, and that's something that many of us in the Cutco world, whether we're on the DM side or the CSP side or whatever, we're going to be able to provide our children someday with better opportunities than maybe we had. And something that I've tried to keep myself conscious, me and my friend were just talking about this of I feel like many of us that were successful, myself included, had a little bit of a rough childhood and we got used to being independent or used to having to lead ourselves, or whatever the case may be. And
Hyper-independence.
yeah, that's right, man. And
Yeah.
my girls won't have to have that situation. I pray, I hope not. However, I remember hearing Trent Booth say, I would love for my daughter to experience some regulated, safe pain to be able to develop that grit. So like knowing that like I can be that safety net underneath them, but letting them fall every once in a while, that was a really, really good reminder for me. Okay. So besides being awesome CSP, sales promotion master, you didn't call yourself that, but I'm gonna give you that title now. So
Oh.
I know you really prioritize your health and wellness. I think a silent killer of a lot of salespeople in and out of Cutco is their lack of attention in that area. Because when we're in sales, we make our own schedules. We get to decide when we'll work and when we'll take time off, and oftentimes that results in getting addicted to work and ignoring ourselves and ignoring everything else in our lives. And I find this happens a ton for event reps because they're surrounded by fair food nonstop. They're traveling so much. It's harder when you like, even in the times I travel, it's so hard to keep my daily routine those days when I'm in a different spot or a location or every day looks different. What's been your journey like on your way to finding that sweet spot when it comes to health and wellness, Stacie?
For me, so just to clarify, so you're
Yeah.
asking, you said what's my sweet spot?
Like, how did you get to where you're at now to where
Oh,
it sounds like you feel pretty good about your health and
yeah.
wellness? And I don't want to assume, I'm assuming it didn't just, you were always that way. It probably took some learning, some growing
It
pains.
took a lot of learning. It took
Yeah.
from literally being at zero to being like, okay, I need to change things.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people in the community are aware of this, and so I had an accident uh coming up on 7 years ago, 2017, 7 years ago. And I broke my back and my wrist and my foot by falling out of a window. And I, I couldn't walk. I had back surgery and wrist surgery. And at the time, I was living with a friend. This was like post college. And I then had to rent a hospital bed in my parents' living room, was in a wheelchair and using a walker, mostly a wheelchair for about like 2 months, and then the walker, and had to just like redo how I did life. And
Oh,
I'd like been into yoga, but like not really. And I had always been just like a small human, really great metabolism, got blessed with that. And I didn't really, I knew I liked to eat healthier, but I didn't really have anything that I was like super focused on. And so that particular event was the what started the chain
mm,
of then I started swimming so that I could regain. I had so much muscle atrophy. And then I was in hand therapy for a year. And so I had to do all these different things, started working with a personal trainer. And that was, I'd never really been in a gym before. So that was what sparked it. And then it turned into just so much more from there, like really learning what made my body feel good, what didn't. I had a lot of like hormonal issues that started when I was younger, but nobody really ever knew. It was one of those like, if you have girls, like, sorry if this is TMI, but I think a lot of other women who listen to this can relate.
yeah.
Doctors will just put you on birth control no matter what's going on with you,
Mm,
even if you're not sexually active. And that was what happened to me when I was 16. And I stayed on birth control for 10 years and it royally messed up the inside of my body. And so that's something that I'm like, man, I wish that I like never did that. But that was just what my doctor told me to do. So of course I did it.
sure.
So then that I started to kind of rediscover what that looked like for me in the beginning of 2020, and like learning that when I ate certain foods during certain times of like my cycle, that made a difference. Working out harder during certain times made a difference. Doing more like restorative activities during certain times makes a difference. And so I really had to dial in because I was like a complete train wreck. So that was what started it, and then it kind of became like an obsession from there. It's like my second job now to like, I mean, but that's how it should be. Like, I can't serve others if I'm not in my best state mentally, physically, emotionally. And the amount of money that I make is directly correlated to the amount of value that I add to other people, in addition to just like my friendships, all that stuff. Like, it's all related to that. So to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it a million times before, but you can't give what you don't have.
Mhm.
right? And I know for me, when I've got that side of my life moving in the right direction, I have more willpower. I have more courage to have tough conversations. I'm more sharp in a lot of cases. What do you, first of all, I don't, before I move on to the next question, what a
Sorry for like
miraculous
the
journey.
trauma dump.
No, dude, I mean, that I had no idea about any of that. And that's amazing that it was less than a decade ago. And I would have never known. But also you, it sounds like it became like there are worse things to be obsessed about than our physical health. Um, what do you wish more CSPs understood about just taking care of themselves?
Um, I think the 80-20 rule, that we've learned that in many different aspects. But what I mean by that is that if we do the things that we want to do and the right things 80% of the time, it's okay if we're not perfect the other
Mm,
20% of the time.
yeah.
What I see a lot of people do is, let's, for like lack of a better example, someone who's trying to lose weight and then they eat a cookie and they're like, oh my gosh, I ruined my whole week. And then they start to like just eat a bunch of crap the rest of the weekend. And I know a lot of people in our community take really good care of themselves, but it's like, just because you have that that cookie doesn't mean that you've lost all the other results that you've had. I've had it where, um, like for example, I got really sick in December and January, and I wasn't able to work out for like 3 weeks, and that killed me. And when I went back to the gym, I was like not feeling good. I was like slow, and this is hard, and this is heavy, and I feel like I've lost all this stuff. And then the next week, just after having that consistent week, I felt the difference. And then the next week after that, just now I don't feel 100% yet, but I definitely feel so much better than I did a month ago. And I recognize a lot of that is, if I'm not consistent one week, that's okay. There's still the next week, but not letting it all just like go to shit, you
Yep.
know?
100%. And I found that once we have a foundation built, whether it's strength or whether it's our diet, we do bounce back more quickly. Like I feel like I get it back. Like if, like to your point, you get sick or whatever the case may be, it does come back more quickly. Any tips for someone maybe looking to improve in that area of their life? Maybe they didn't fall out of
Yeah.
the window and break their back. Okay, maybe they're just not where they want to
Yeah.
be, or they notice themselves getting tired or fatigued, or it's just like, dude, I've told myself I wanted to go to the gym or eat healthy for the last 5 weeks and I haven't done it yet. Like what would the tip be to just get started?
Well, I find that a lot of people make it an either or situation. Either I
Mm.
can have a really great business and sell a lot, or I can be healthy or do all these things. And that's not the case. I mean, look at like Matt Graves, for example, or TC Smith, like people who like really focus on their health, but also have really great businesses. And I think the first step is just picking, what do you want to be aware of? Like what, I think it's having a one thing. Everyone looks at like all these other things that they could possibly be doing, like, oh, I could be meditating, I could be meal prepping, I could be going to the gym X number of times a week, I could be drinking a gallon of water, I could be doing affirmations, all these other things. It's like, great, you can get there, but what's the number one thing that if by doing that it makes everything else easier or unnecessary, then just stick with that. And so like for me, it's making sure that I have the food that I need to eat. I have to eat a lot of food in a day. And so I have like a dialed in system of what I eat every day, how I get that, when I can meal prep, that's my big thing. And then everything else falls into place from there. But it's just pick what the one thing is, start there, and then after you've got the handle of that, start stacking the habits of, okay, now I want to like focus on the water, then I want to focus on the meditating, or I want to focus on the gym, etc. But I think food is the biggest place to start personally, and then going from there.
Yeah. Shout out to our meal preppers out there. When you don't have to think about it, oh, it's pretty awesome. But the
Even
second I
if
have to
you
think
don't
about it,
meal prep, like get a service that does it for you.
worth every penny.
Oh
Worth
my God.
every penny. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite services that you'd say, hey, if that is the route you want to go, ones that you would say, hey, these are great ones?
So I use, I'm like having a hard time getting back to regular cooking because I'm so spoiled right now. So I use a company called Clean Eats, and they ship, they'll, ship everything in dry ice to you, and they're already like portioned out. You can scan it if you do like a food tracking app. And it's all really good, really simple. I buy their high protein box, and it ships 30 meals to me, and it's like $220.
Oh,
It's
wow.
such a good deal.
Price point amazing.
I know. And that's why it's so hard for me to like not do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say stick with that until they realize that they're losing money. Just
I
stick with that.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. With our last couple of minutes here, Stacie, I just wanted to make sure that I covered all bases and wanted to ask, what's something that I should have or could have asked you today that you feel like really would have helped our team?
That's a great question. Um, hmm. I feel like this question is like I never really know how to ask it. I mean, I guess it could be something along the lines of either like what am I focusing on right now,
Yeah.
or
What are you
so
focusing on right now?
right now, instead of trying to do so many things, I was like, okay, what's the number one thing that if I focus on this year, it's going to be the game changer for my business and make everything else easier, and it's mastering objections. And that's like what I'm dialed in on, what I'm working on, the scripts that I'm going over. Because I realize that just carries into everything. I know how to sell all the stuff, but focusing on how to handle any objections that come up or before they come up is my biggest thing right now.
Love
So,
it. What did you do to identify that?
started noticing how many people I was letting walk at the booth and how painful it was.
So is that just in reflection
It's like,
time? Is
wow,
that
I
just
could have had a 10K day, but instead I had a 3K day. Like, when you think about all the CPO that was at your booth that you
yeah,
let walk, but
cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we are in such a unique situation at Cutco where it's so funny, like no one's required to do any of this.
Mhm.
Leaders aren't required to give back or anything, but I feel like you guys give back more than anyone else. I'm so thankful for our CSP community. And today I love how you showed up, Stacie, authentic, completely yourself. You were present. I don't think I talked to the being interviewed for a podcast version of Stacie Barton today. I feel like if we ran into each other at a conference, we would have had the exact same conversation. I appreciate that about you so much. Have fun at your trip in Europe. That's
Hey,
great. That's fantastic. Where all are you visiting? Where will you be?
well, I'm going to Madrid.
Let's go. I'll see you there.
Okay, cool. See you there. And then my boyfriend and I are extending. We're going to Portugal. And then we're also going to go to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day. So that's going to be really fun.
Zero
and I've
fun.
been to Europe
Zero
before. It's my first time.
Oh, man. You guys are going to have a blast. Well, seriously, thank you so much for taking time for us today. Appreciate it so much. I will see you in Madrid.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, man. And don't miss upcoming episodes. We've got Luke Mills and Seth Kinzer coming up shortly after this one. We will see you guys next time. Have an awesome day. Thanks for listening. And for some of you watching, I want to remind you that all resources from today can be found at linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the EE. If you want to be a member of our live Zoom audience for one of our upcoming shows, email bwiggins@vectormarketing.com. That's BWIGGINS @vectormarketing.com. If you loved what you heard today, I'd be honored if you followed, subscribed, or even rated us on whatever platform you use to find your 60 minutes of fire. We'll see you next time.